Welcome to The Explainer. I am so thrilled to have you here today because we're jumping right into a deep dive book review of a text that, honestly, fundamentally shatters traditional economic views. We are talking about Kate Raworth's Doughnut Economics. Now, if you're sitting there thinking economics is just, boring graphs and endless charts, well, get ready for a complete paradigm shift. Raworth literally uses this book as a massive wake-up call to rethink our values, our resources, and our whole future. We're going to deconstruct those old, dusty systems you probably learned back in school, and we're going to bake up a completely new, sustainable mindset.
So here's our game plan for today. First, we'll look at the flawed economic model. Second, we'll officially enter the Doughnut Model. Third, we're exploring the circular economy in action. And finally, we'll wrap things up with living the planetary household.
All right, part one, the flawed economic model, or as I like to think of it, unlearning what we were taught in school.
I want you to take a second and cast your mind back to the very first time you were introduced to economics. You probably saw this diagram with two neat little circles, right? Firms on one side, households on the other, just passing money back and forth in this endless loop of buying, selling, working, and spending. Looked pretty neat on the chalkboard, but it brings us to a really crucial question. Is our mental map of the economy completely broken? Because according to Kate Raworth, that tidy little textbook loop isn't just incomplete, it's actually dangerously misleading. It creates this false reality where we just assume endless growth is perfectly fine. And worse, it totally ignores the actual mechanics of how humanity survives and thrives on this planet.
See, there's a massive, glaring gap between what we were taught and what's actually happening out there. That old model basically suggests our economy just floats above the planet in some sort of magic, untouchable bubble. But reality? The planetary reality is entirely different. Our economy is deeply, fundamentally embedded in the Earth. It actively draws on our rivers, our forests, our air, our soil. And then, in return for all that consumption, it just dumps out pollution, waste, and sometimes leaves behind massive environmental scars that take literally generations to heal. And this right here reveals exactly what GDP, gross domestic product, entirely ignores. Raworth actually calls out four huge flaws in those old diagrams. Number one, it completely forgets ecological limits, just pretends they don't exist. Number two, it ignores parenting and household work. Think of all the invisible labor happening right this second. Caring for kids, running households, it creates immense, tangible value, yet traditional economics just scores it a big fat zero. Number three, it overlooks unpaid social contributions. Helping neighbors, community volunteering, the everyday acts of kindness that actually keep society glued together. And number four, it masks massive inequality. We literally throw a party for growth on paper, all while the gap between the rich and the poor just keeps widening in reality.
Which brings us to part two, enter the Doughnut Model, the sweet spot for humanity and the planet.
So if our traditional mental map is so hopelessly broken, how on earth do we fix it? Well, Raworth's answer is simple, elegant, and super visual. We stop thinking in straight, linear graphs aiming upward to infinity, and we start visualizing a balanced circle. The Doughnut is a framework for sustainable development. It forces us to balance a social foundation of essential human needs right alongside an ecological ceiling of planetary boundaries.
Okay, let's look at how this builds into an actual donut shape. Try to picture the pastry right in front of you. Slice one is the hole in the center. This represents the social foundation. These are 12 essential human needs. We're talking food, water, health, education, justice. The rule is, nobody should be left falling into the hole. Then, slice three is the outer ring. That's the ecological ceiling. These are the absolute boundaries we cannot breach, things like climate stability, clean oceans, breathable air. And then slice two, the dough itself. That, my friends, is the safe, just space where humanity can actually thrive without wrecking the planet. The ultimate goal of all economics should be getting every single person into the dough.
But, as you probably guessed, we have a major problem right now. We are totally overshooting the oven. We're putting way more into it than it can possibly handle. Overfishing, aggressive deforestation, massive CO2 emissions, they are actively breaching that outer ecological ceiling. The Doughnut Model acts as this giant flashing warning sign. If we don't figure out how to stay in that sweet spot, we risk literally burning the entire planetary system to a crisp.
Moving on to part three, the circular economy action, going from theory to real-world impact.
Because when Raworth talks about a circular economy, she absolutely does not just mean abstract ivory tower theory. She means tangible, physical, roll-up-your-sleeves action. And look at this circular action happening around the globe right now. It starts with something as simple as your grandma's recycling bin. with those three little arrows. That tiny, everyday act symbolizes something enormous, that resources can be reused, reshaped, and reborn. San Francisco now officially mandates composting. Down in Argentina, communities are turning literal trash into incredible art. Germany has this massive, super efficient bottle recycling program. Huge corporations like BMW are out there recycling entire cars. And science? Science is constantly catching up, finding mind-blowing ways to turn organic waste into fuel or old plastics into brand new materials. We really don't need to sit around waiting for magic solutions. We can start right now just by rethinking what we throw away.
To put this into perspective, just consider this staggering number, $21,000. Now, you might be wondering, what is that? Is that corporate profit from a massive mining operation? No way. That is exactly how much a 7-year-old entrepreneur made just by collecting and selling recyclables. It's incredible, right? It proves that circular action isn't just ecologically sound. There is actual undeniable economic value to be captured the minute we stop viewing used materials as waste.
And that leads us nicely right into part 4, living the planetary household, how we apply Doughnut Economics today.
How do we take all of these massive ideas and actually internalize them into our daily lives? Well, this brings us to Raworth's core thesis. She says, ours is the era of the planetary household. And wow, what a beautiful, powerful reminder that is. We don't live in isolated national bubbles anymore. We are all living under one shared, incredibly complex roof. The resources we use, the air we breathe, the ecosystems we alter, it is all intimately connected. The choices you and I make ripple across every single life and every community on Earth.
So, how do we live it? We can start taking action with 3 very clear steps. Step 1, notice the invisible work around you. Start actually valuing the caregiving, the community building, the vital things that just don't come with a price tag attached. Step 2, recognize the ecological limits that literally cradle our existence. We just cannot push past the planet's boundaries without severe consequences. And step 3, embrace the circular mindset. Reuse, recycle, rethink, and profoundly respect the finite resources that we all share. Now you might be wondering, who exactly is this book for? Honestly, it's for the 19-year-old economics student who's absolutely convinced they've completely mastered supply and demand. It's for the 55-year-old consultant who's ready to pivot into more meaningful, impactful work. And yes, for sure, it is for anyone who loves literal or metaphorical donuts. Because Raworth's Doughnut isn't just an economic model, it is a deeply human metaphor. It reminds us that growth alone just isn't enough anymore. Prosperity without justice is completely hollow. And sustainability without humanity, well, that's just meaningless.
So, I want to end this explainer by leaving you with this rather provocative question to ponder. How will you change your daily choices to stay within the sweet spot of the donut? If we design our economy and our lives with a little more care, a lot of curiosity, and a bit of courage, we can absolutely thrive within the donut rather than outside of it. I highly, highly recommend picking up the book to dive deeper into these concepts. Thank you so much for joining me to rethink our world one sweet circular bite at a time. I really hope this explainer brought you some major moments of reflection today. Keep learning, and I will catch you next time.